The course plan is going to be, in the beginning, we'll be talking about a few aspects, which will be microeconomics. Once we are done with a few classes on microeconomics, we will move to macroeconomics, and from macroeconomics, we will move to Indian economy. This is what the course plan is going to look like. Today's discussion will be centered around microeconomics. In fact, today's class is an introductory class. So what will be the objectives? The objectives of the introductory class would be to first understand what is the meaning of economics as an academic discipline. We will have to talk about the objectives of the academic discipline, which is economics. We will also talk about something related to the types of economics. And towards the end, we will also talk about what is meant by economic systems. The objectives of today's class have been listed here. We will begin with an understanding on economics as a subject. We will then proceed to discuss the objectives of economics. From there, we will move to types of economics, and then towards the end, we will discuss economic systems. Now, there are certain rules of the class, which is, while I am discussing something on the board, I would request you all to not be spamming the comment section. I will give you time each time I complete something. I will give you time to ask me questions. I'm very willing to take questions and answer those. So I would request you all to maintain a little bit of discipline and not be spamming the comment section as we speak on the board. All right. Let's begin our discussion now. Now, we'll begin our discussion with a very simple thought experiment of sorts. The thought experiment is, consider India as a country. In India, what do you think could be the proportion of the population that lives below the poverty line? How many people in India live below the poverty line? Or you can say, how many people in India do you think are poor? Now, there are many estimates around this. The last few official estimates came after the Rachan committee, which was set up in 2013. We don't have to be accurate about this number. Let us think of a random number. Let's just say that in India, 25% of India's population, for the sake of supposition itself, let's just say 25% of India's population lives below the poverty line. Now, India's population is about 140 crore people. 25% of 140 crore people will be closer to around 35 crore people. Let us just assume, for the sake of simplicity, that in India, 35 crore people live below the poverty line, which is those people who we officially consider to be poor. Now, if we have to think of a scenario, which is, can the Indian government not give 100 rupees daily to the poor people so that they can go and feed themselves? Think of it. Why is it that the Indian government may or may not be giving 100 rupees every day to every poor person, just so this poor person can at least get 2 square course meals a day? Is it possible? Can the government give 100 rupees to all the poor people in India every day, just so they can go and feed themselves? I mean, of course it is possible. But if the Indian government decides to do this, if the Indian government decides to give 100 rupees to every poor person every day, this would mean that the Indian government is bearing a daily cost of how much? 100 rupees per day to 35 crore people. This means 3,500 crore rupees is the daily cost of the Indian government just so the poor people can go and feed themselves at least twice every day. Now 3,500 crore rupees per day would mean that the yearly cost to the government will come out to be roughly around 3,500 crores multiplied by 365. The daily cost is 3,500 crore rupees. Obviously, the yearly cost would be 3,500 crores multiplied by 365, which is closer to around, if I'm not mistaken, this should be 13 lakh crore rupees. Can the Indian government, all of you all, think about it. Can the Indian government not bear this kind of an yearly cost to spend on its poor people just so they can feed themselves twice every day? Do you think it's a stretch that the Indian government is spending 13 lakh crore rupees and spending it on the poor people, giving it to them every day so that these people feed themselves? Is this a big imagination? Is this quite a lofty objective? How many of you think that this is possible? Of course, the government can spend 13 lakh crore rupees every year just so every poor person in India can at least afford to eat twice every day. Give me a yes, give me a no. Is it theoretically possible for the government to do this? Think about this. Is this theoretically possible? Can the Indian government, theoretically speaking, spend 13 lakh crore rupees every year on poor people just so they can eat twice every day? Except for Sejal, every person in the class thinks that it is not theoretically possible for the government to do this. In fact, Suryananda is also saying no. Only a few people, maybe less than 1% of you, are agreeing that yes, it is theoretically possible. Of course, it is theoretically possible. The Indian government can, of course, theoretically spend 13 lakh crore rupees every year, give 100 rupees to every poor person just so they can feed themselves twice every day. But this is going to create some serious repercussions. Why? If you look at the budget of the Indian government, India's yearly budget is closer to around 50 lakh crore rupees. This is the budget that the Indian government is working with. Every year the government presents a budget in the House of the Parliament. If you look at this year's budget, if you look at the expenditure that the Indian government has decided to make for this financial year, you will find that the number is closer to 50 lakh crore rupees. That means if Indian government has 50 lakh crore rupees to spend, why can't it spend 13 lakh crore rupees on the poor people just so they can eat twice every day? So is it theoretically possible? Certainly it is theoretically possible, but there would be long-term repercussions. Why would there be long-term repercussions? Now, 13 lakh crore rupees as a proportion of 50 lakh crore rupees means that the Indian government is spending 25% of its budget only and only on poor people just so they can eat food twice every day. 25% of Indian government's money would be spent just so poor people eat twice every day, which means that the Indian government will only be left with 75% of its budget to do all the remaining things. And the government has to do many things. Of course, it looks after the well-being, the welfare of its people, one of which includes that people should not be suffering from hunger. People should not be sleeping without eating every day. Of course, this should be one of its objectives, But this objective is coming at a very huge cost. If you are spending 25% of your budget, 25% of your money only on one item, what about the remaining items? That means 37 lakh crores is left to do all the remaining things. And the remaining things, the list is huge. For instance, the remaining things will include expenditure on India's defense. The government, in terms of its order of priority of the things that it has to do, the first thing that the government has to do is to make sure that its citizens are safe at all times. And for that, the government is definitely required to make defense expenditure. In fact, earlier last year, you would have seen that there was a conflict scenario which had erupted with our enemy neighbor, which is Pakistan. Right? Imagine such kind of a circumstance can emanate any day. Do you know how much does it cost to make a BrahMos missile? And how many missiles will we need? A BrahMos missile costs you 30 crore rupees, which means that if you have to make 1,000 of these missiles, it will take you 30,000 crore rupees. And BrahMos missiles is only going to be one small component of the country's defense expenditure. What about the fighter jets? What about tanks? What about the remaining artillery? What about canteen stores department? What about giving salaries to its armed forces? There is a lot of expenditure which the government is committed to make every year towards the cause of defense. What about education? What about healthcare? What about one of our major expenditures, which is infrastructure? What about the energy requirements of the country? And the list continues to go on. The government has to do a lot of different things. And if it chooses to spend some 25% of its budget on only one item, it means it will be forced to spend the remaining 75 on a list of hundreds and thousands of things that it has to do. There are many things that the government has to do. Do you understand this? It simply means what? What does it indicate? It indicates that the government may want to do everything, but is it possible? The government may take up many objectives onto itself, but doing everything, is it even possible? Certainly not. The government is restricted by something called its budget. The government has limited resources. This year, the government's resources will be touching 50 lakh crore rupees. It does not have infinite amounts of money. It does not have infinite amounts of resources. The government, which is a big association, it's a big institution, is also limited by the amount of resources that it has, and there are many objectives that it has to fulfill using those limited resources. Now, this was about the government. Let us think about businesses. A good example of businesses could be, let's say, the film business, the movie industry. I typically ask students of my class, how many times have you seen that there are movies which are being produced which have something called an ensemble cast? An ensemble cast means that there are so many of popular actors, all of them working together in a single movie. Right? How many movies do you find which are produced with an ensemble cast? Which have a Shah Rukh Khan, which have the Salman Khans, which have the Amir Khans of the world, which has, I don't know, who's this other guy, Kartik Aaryan, and all of those people who are all popular. Why is it that not a lot of movies are produced which have all the actors, leading actresses in it? Do you think producers of movies are poor people? Do you think Karan Johar is a poor person? Do you think the Yash Raj films, they are poor people? Do you think they are all poor people? They are certainly not poor people. They are big businessmen. They have a lot of resources. And if they have a lot of resources, Why is it that these people are unable to produce movies, these movies have all the leading actors and actresses in them? That should be a sure short formula for getting your movie to be a blockbuster, isn't it? Why is it that this does not happen so often? What do you think could be the reason? The reason, once again, is that the producer of every movie, even if many producers come together, the producers are also limited by their budget. They do not have infinite amounts of money. If an Akshay Kumar is going to charge you 100 crore rupees and Ajay Devgan is going to charge you 70 crore rupees, Shah Rukh Khan is going to charge you 150 crore rupees, Salman Khan is going to charge you 150 crore rupees, let's say an Amir Khan is going to charge you 150 crore rupees, and then all the leading actresses, they may not be charging 100 crore rupees, but certainly around 25 to 30 odd crore rupees. Do you know you'll require thousands of crores only and only to get actors on board? Now, every movie's budget cannot be thousands of crore rupees. Think of a scenario where the producer has a budget of 1,000 crore rupees, and which is an insanely high budget. It's a very, very high budget for a movie. If I invite Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Akshay Kumar, Ajay Devgan, Amitabh Bachchan, and then Deepika Padukone and all of those remaining actresses, we can say very, very leading actresses, this in total should be around, even an Amir Khan for that matter, these people together should be around 450 crore rupees only and only towards fees. And then another couple of 100 crore rupees for the remaining leading actors and actresses. And if I'm spending somewhere closer to around 500-600 crore rupees only and only to pay my actors, then what about the remaining aspect of a film? What about the script? What about dialogues? What about cinematography? What about post-production? What about marketing of the movie? This is also a lot of expenditure. If I am spending 600-700 crore rupees only and only on my actors, I am left with even lesser money to be able to do many of these things. And mind you, marketing is a huge spend for any movie. Even very, very rich people, even the biggest of big businessmen across the world, not just in India, even they are limited by the amount of money that they have to be able to make many things. Yes, music, Deepti is saying music. And we're talking about rich people here. We're not talking about poor people, we're talking about rich people. Even these rich people are limited. They may have a lot more money than you, but even they cannot have everything in the world. They are also limited or constrained by budgetary limitations. It's not just the government, it's also very, very rich people. They are also limited. Think of you yourself. Ordinary people like us, consumers. When you go to a superstore, one of these hypermarkets, which are like big stores, you enter that store, there are so many goods available in that store, and you would want to have everything. Why would you not want to have everything that is there in the store? But are you able to buy everything in that store? Every time you enter a store, you are made to feel a little poor. Why? Because you may want to have everything that is there, but you are also limited by your purse. Isn't it? Haven't you ever entered a big market, a hypermarket, and suddenly discovered that you are all very poor? You enter into a Massimo Dutti store, you want to get that leather jacket, but the leather jacket costs you 45,000 rupees. It's a lot of money. And if you spend 45,000 on a jacket, then how much money do you have to buy all the other things that you may need? Which means everybody, Starting from us ordinary people, us ordinary consumers, to big business people, to even the biggest of big organizations, which is the government, everybody and everyone is constrained. Everyone faces a constraint. And what is this constraint? The constraint is what is called scarcity. Scarcity means that all of us, even though we may want to have everything that is there in the universe, but we just can't have everything that there is. Scarcity simply means that we cannot have everything. We just can't have everything. Now, technically, how do you define scarcity? Or in very simple terms, if you have to define scarcity, what is it? What is scarcity really? How do you define scarcity? Scarcity, if you have to understand it very simply, scarcity simply means that all our wants taken together add up to more than there is of the things that we want. This is how you define scarcity. Scarcity simply means that if we add up the wants of everyone, let us talk about, everyone thinking about owning a house by the beach. If I ask you how many of us would want to have, a house by the beach side, I don't think anyone amongst us would disagree. Anyone amongst us would say, you know what, I don't want a beach house. But if I take up and if I add up the want of every person in terms of beach houses, there are not enough beach houses in the entire world. All our wants taken together will add up to more than there is of the things that we want. This scenario is what is called scarcity. And it's the scarcity principle which has led to the emergence of this discipline that we call economics. Now, what is the scarcity principle? The scarcity principle is a principle that you would have heard many times in your life. Scarcity principle is our needs, our wants are unlimited, while the resources, while our resources to achieve these needs and wants, they are limited. This is what is called the scarcity principle. And it is the scarcity principle which has given genesis or which has given birth to this academic discipline that we call economics. There are many ways of defining economics as an academic discipline. What is it that it seeks to study? What is it that it seeks to understand? Economics, simply defined, is the study of scarcity itself, is the study of the limited resources. We understand that all of our needs and wants, they must be unlimited, but the resources that we want, that we have to achieve these needs and wants, they are limited. Now, because our needs and wants are unlimited while our resources are limited, the question that arises is that how do we allocate these limited resources to make sure that we produce happiness for the maximum possible people. The study of this scarcity is what is called economics. Economics, simply defined, is the study of scarcity. Economics, simply defined, is concerned with the allocation of our limited resources to achieve the maximum possible benefit for the maximum number of people. This is what the discipline is concerned with. So if you have to define economics, the first definition of economics as a subject would simply be definition number 1. This would simply be economics is the study of scarcity. It's a study of the scarcity of our resources. We can even say that it's the study of the scarcity of resources and is concerned with the optimal allocation of these resources. When we say optimal allocation of resources, what does this word optimal mean? What does this word mean, optimal? Consider an example. You would have heard that the fastest bowler in the world is Shoaib Akhtar. Now, Shoaib Akhtar is known to be the fastest bowler in the world. If I'm not mistaken, he has clocked closer to around 100 miles per hour, which is going to be closer to around 163 kilometers per hour. This is the maximum possible speed that he delivers the ball at. Now, is it possible for Shoaib Akhtar to be bowling every delivery at 163 kilometers per hour? Think about it. Think about it. Is it possible for Shoaib Akhtar, who used to be the fastest bowler in the world, is it possible for him to be delivering every ball at 163 kilometers per hour? Give me a yes, give me a no. Can he theoretically do it? Let us talk about an ODI game, a one-day international, where he has to bowl 10 overs, which is 60 deliveries. Can he bowl every one of those deliveries at 163? Why not? All of you are saying no, and actually the answer is no. Why can't he bowl every delivery at 163 kilometers per hour? The reason is very simple. The reason is that it takes a lot of effort for a fast bowler to clock 100 miles per hour. When he lands, the landing foot takes about 4 times the body weight for a fast bowler, which is why you would have seen fast bowlers are very, very prone to injuries. When they are delivering, the foot on which they land on the ground takes about 4 times the body weight. So if Shoaib Akhtar decides to bowl every delivery at 163 or 160 even for that matter, his body is not going to allow it. His body is going to break down. Maybe he will be able to bowl probably 1 overs, 2 overs or 3 overs at a speed of 150 plus, but the body is going to wear out. His body is going to be so torn that the remaining of his 7 overs, he may not be even clocking 130-35. That's how much it takes for Shoaib Akhtar to be bowling every ball at 160 odd. Which is why he will have to think of optimally using his capabilities. His constraint is how much his body is going to take. Which is why he will not be aiming at delivering every delivery at 160 plus. He will be using that as an armory to surprise the batsman. He will typically be bowling at around 145 plus, but one or the other odd delivery in the middle, he may try to bowl exceptionally fast. This is him using his resources optimally, which means he is not trying to max out on every delivery because that is going to break him. Same is the word here, which is optimal allocation of resources. Every person is facing a constraint, so they don't have to max their resources out. they have to think judiciously, they have to think wisely about how do we allocate resources. Which means, for example, the government has to think how much money should be spent on food for the poor people. Because if we spend a lot of money on food for the poor people, that means the government will have very limited amounts of money to spend on other things. It will have to make a choice. The government will have to think of how much money has to go towards defense, how much money has to go towards, let's say, education, how much money has to be spent on healthcare, how much money has to be spent on food security for the nation, how much money has to be spent on infrastructure, on energy mix, on a lot of other things. You will have to make a choice. This is what is meant by optimal allocation of resources to produce the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people. So another way of defining economics is simply that it's a study of limited resources or scarcity of resources, scarce resources, and is concerned with the optimal allocation of resources, which is the prime objective of economics as a discipline. The first objective of economics as an academic discipline is how do we optimally allocate our limited resources to produce the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Another way of defining economics. There can be a third way of defining economics too. How can we define economics in another manner? You can say that economics is the social science that concerns itself with the scarcity of resources and the choices that agents are forced to make because of this scarcity. Each definition is going to be longer and more comprehensive than the previous one. Economics is a social science. When I say economics is a social science, what does it mean? It simply means that the subject matter of economics is human beings and their interactions with each other. It's a social science that concerns itself with the scarcity of resources and the choices that agents are forced to make because of this scarcity. To take the same example as we have been discussing previously, there is a choice that the government has to make. The government has a total of 50 lakh crore rupees. If it spends 13 lakh crore rupees only to give 100 rupees to every poor person every day, that means it will have only and only 37 lakh crore rupees to do all the remaining things. The government is now forced to make a choice. Scarcity forces people to make a choice because people can't have everything. Government does not have unlimited resources. Now the government will have to pick and choose. How much money has to be spent on food or food security, you may say? How much money should go towards the energy requirements of the country? How much money has to be allocated towards healthcare? How much towards defense? How much towards education, infrastructure, so on and so forth, various sectors of the economy. The study of these choices made by this agent called government, you can think about this also as economics. Similarly, businesses, the movie producer has to think and decide that if he is working with a budget of 1,000 crore rupees, how much money has to be spent on actors. Because the more money you spend on actors, the less money you will have to do all the remaining things. So how much money has to be going to the actors, which actors have to be selected, How much money should go to the scriptwriter? How much money should go towards dialogues? How much money should go towards cinematography, post-production, marketing, music, so on and so forth? The producer will be forced to make a choice. The producer does not have unlimited resources to be making this kind of expenditure, which is why he has been forced to make a choice. Economics is the study of these choices. You go to a superstore, you are carrying a purse, the purse carries limited amounts of money. You have to buy many things. You have to buy clothes for yourself, you have to buy stationery items, you have to buy food items, you have to spend on, like chocolates, you have to spend on internet, you have to spend on many things. Because you do not have unlimited money is the reason why you have been forced to make a choice. How much money should go towards your food requirements? How much money should go towards stationery requirements? How much should you spend on shoes? How much should you spend on clothes? How much should you spend on internet? How much should you spend on travel? Should you be going to a theater or not? All of these are choices that you have been forced to make because you are facing a scarcity of money. Do you understand this now? One more way of defining economics is very simple, which is that economics is the study or is the social science which concerns itself with the study of scarcity of resources and the choices that this scarcity forces individual agents to make. Now, who are these agents? In any economy, you will find there will be three types of agents for sure. One agent you will call consumers. Another agent you will call producers. The third agent you will call the government. These are all economic agents. Number one, consumers. Number two, producers. Number three, the government. All of these three agents, us normal consumers, other producers, the government, everybody is facing a certain kind of scarcity and everybody has to make choices. Consumers have to make a choice which is called consumption. How much consumption can they do? Producers are concerned with another important economic activity which is called production. This is their objective. The objective of producers is to produce goods and services. The objective of the government is the general well-being and safety of its citizens. Each of these economic agents has a certain objective, has a certain role to achieve. And each of these economic agents is facing scarcity of resources. Now, with those scarce resources, how do they make these choices? How do you make your consumption choices? How much should producers produce? How many cars should be produced in the country? How many chairs should be produced in the country? How many jeans? How many shoes? How many footballs? How many cricket bats should be produced in the country? Producers will have to decide. Similarly, the government has to think about the general well-being and the safety of its people, and each of these agents are limited by their resources. You can also say that economics is the study of these three kinds of economic activities. The economic activity of consumption, the economic activity of production, the economic activity of distribution of resources and redistribution of resources. This could be another way that you can define economics as an academic discipline. Consumption, production, general well-being and safety. Now let us think about these economic activities. If I ask you, how many of you know what production means? What do you think is meant by this economic activity called production? I'm going to give you a minute to think about it and give me a response. How many of you know what is the meaning of production? Anybody who knows what is meant by production? Harsha is saying making of something. Agnes is saying producing goods. Abhishek is saying creation of goods. All of you all try and chip in, try and think, what does it mean by production? Manufacturing, producing goods and services, to produce goods and services. Once again, I'm asking you, what do you mean to produce something? What is the task of producing something? What does it mean? Yes, Shivani is nearly right. Making of things in large quantities, producing all daily necessary items, converting raw materials into final goods. So, thank you all for chipping in. Thank you all for contributing. Very, very good. Okay. Now let us try and understand what production basically means. I start from my house, let's say in Greater Karash, Delhi, and I have to reach my office, let us say, which is in Karol Bagh. Think about a person like me who has to go from a Greater Kailash to Karol Bagh. I don't have a car. If I don't have a car, how will I reach from my house, which is some 17-20 odd kilometers away from my office? This is my home. This is my office. How do I get from my home to my office every day? Right? I can't teleport myself. I can't fly. I can't walk 20-25 kilometers one way every day. Right? Some person is going to offer a cab service. There is a person who owns a car and he is willing to take me from my home and drop me off at my office, provided I give him some money. I don't own a car, another person owns a car and he is willing to pick me up from my home, drop me off at my office, provided that I give him some money for it. Or I can take the metro. I can even take public transport. Do I own the bus? I don't own the bus. Do I own the metro train? I don't own the metro train. Somebody else does. Some other person is charging me for something that I need to do. Is any production happening here? Is something being produced here or not? Think about it. Is something being produced? If there is a person who is willing to pick me up from my home, drop me off to my office, provided I give him some fare, some money, is something being produced? Is it a good? Is it a good being produced? Or is it a service? Think about it, because most of you had written, when I asked you what production means, you said producing goods and services. Many of you said producing goods. Is something being made? Certainly something is being created. What is being created? A cab ride is being created. Somebody is producing a service of picking people up from their home or their origin, dropping them off to their destination. Something is being created. If I get this cab ride, something new was created, a new service was created. Is it production? Is this production or not? Will you say that this is production? Will you say that this is production? Give me a yes, give me a no. Isn't it? Somebody is producing something. Somebody is producing a service, a cab service. Think of another thing. You have only recently bought a very expensive diamond ring. It's a very expensive diamond ring that you have bought for your loved one. Now, because this diamond ring costs you, let us say 10 lakh rupees, you would want to keep this diamond ring safe, wouldn't you? Now, how do you keep this diamond ring safe? You will go to the market and you will buy a locker, or you will buy a vault. Wouldn't this help you? Would this help you or would this not? If you have bought an expensive diamond ring for your loved one, something that costs you 10 lakh rupees, right? Would you want to keep it safe? You would certainly want to keep it safe, because any person can take away this specific ring from your house, isn't it? You would most likely want to keep it safe. And if you want to keep it safe, you'll go to the market and you will look for an item which can help you keep it safe. Will a locker be enough? Will a vault be enough? Right? So can I say that this locker or this vault carries a certain use value for me? Does this locker, does this vault have a use for you? Does this locker or does this vault have some use for you or not? Give me a yes, give me a no. I'm surprised that a lot of you are thinking that a locker has no use for you. Anshu is saying not properly. Now Anshu, if you want to keep your locker open, then that's on you. The locker carries a certain use for you. This use value is called the utility of this item. This locker is a physical thing, and this physical thing carries a certain use value. People can use this locker to keep their items safe, or this locker has a utility for others. Think of another item. It is already winters, and because winters causes shivers, quite obviously you would want to cover yourself up. You would want to feel warm. It's winters, and it's very, very harsh winters in the north of India. You would like to stay warm. You would like to cover yourself up. Now you can cover yourself up with tea leaves. This is one way of covering you up. You can also cover yourself up with a jacket. Which one are you going to go for? It's winters. Winters causes you to shiver. Winters cause a lot of cold for people. You of course want to keep yourself warm. You want to cover yourself up. You can cover yourself up with tree leaves. You can cover yourself up with the lid of a water tank. You could cover yourself up with a jacket. Which one of these three would you want? You can take a Syntex water tank and the lid of the Syntex water tank to cover yourself up. You can go find the nearest tree, try to stitch leaves together, make something that Urfi Javed would normally want to wear, and then you can use this. Or you can wear a jacket. I am sure that all of you all would want to wear a jacket. Can I say that this jacket holds a certain use value or holds a certain utility for you? Can I say this? Of course I can say this. So what is production? Production has to be defined very simply. Production means that human beings, they are very needy people. Human beings have needs, human beings have wants. Right? We all are very needy, we have needs, we have wants. Not all of our needs and wants can be satisfied naturally. Can all our needs and wants be satisfied naturally? Certainly not. Do you dig soil and get lockers out of it? Can you find a leather jacket dug up somewhere in the soil? Do you have to swim to the bottom of the ocean to find something called jackets? Are cab services produced by the nature itself? Are cab services produced by nature? Not all our needs and wants can be satisfied naturally. Some of our needs and wants are satisfied by things or by activities which require us to transform natural resources into items of use. A jacket is not hung up on trees. A jacket is not created by nature. A locker is not created by nature. A cab ride is not naturally produced. Somebody has to produce it. For instance, for you to make a leather jacket, you will of course have a natural resource which is leather, but then leather itself is not a jacket. Some person has to create a jacket out of that leather. The task of transforming leather into something that holds utility for others, this task itself is called production. Production is the act of extraction of natural resources and transformation of natural resources into items which hold use for others. This is how you define production. What is production simply defined as? You will say production is the task of extraction of natural resources and transformation of natural resources into goods and services that hold utility or that carry a certain use value. This is how you define production. Production is a process, it's a task wherein we are either extracting natural resources or we are converting, transforming these natural resources into items, into goods, into services that hold a utility or use value for others. This is how you define production. Now, what are goods and what are services? What is the difference between these two? What could be a good and what is a service? What's the basic difference between each of these two items? Keep in mind that goods, these are physical items. Because these are physical items, you can see them, you can touch them, you can feel them, you can store them, you can transfer them also. These are tangible items. These are physical items, therefore tangible. These are storable items. These are transferable items which hold utility or use value for others. This is how you define goods. Goods are items. These are physical items, tangible items, therefore are storable, transferable, and these items carry use value or utility for others. For example, jackets are goods. In our example, locker is a good. What is a service? A service is not a physical item. A service is simply defined as economic activities. I would not say economic. I will simply say services are defined as activities that carry a use value or utility for others. Seva. This is how you define service. I don't own a car. I have to get from my home to my office. Somebody is offering or somebody is doing an activity which is helping me, which carries a certain utility for me. Somebody is picking me up and dropping me off. This is a service. Is this a physical thing? No. Because it's not a physical thing, it is also called, this is intangible, therefore non-storable, therefore non-transferable also. What I am doing for you right now, I am producing a service. All of you all want to clear the civil services examination. And towards that objective, there's a lot of things that you are better off if anybody else guides you. What I am doing right now is creating a service for you. This is an activity which I am performing. This activity holds some use value for you, which is why you have paid for the service. Do you understand this? Now, how do you define production? Simply defined as a process of either extraction of natural resources and transformation of these natural resources into goods and services which hold use value for others. Is this clear? Is the definition of production clear? Right? Goods are items, services are activities. Goods are therefore tangible, services are therefore intangible. If there is a doubt, ask me. Guys, got any doubts? Ask me now. No doubts? I'm going to wait for another 30 odd seconds. Perfect then. Prama is saying, sir, can I ask other than this? No, Prama. Sir, please make dictation so we can make notes. Abhishek, no dictation will happen in the class because then it means that we will have to take some 70, 80 classes. Hitler is asking me, hello Hitler, how to make notes, sir, please explain. Firstly, Hitler, you should have attended the orientation class. Yesterday we discussed that there will be no dictation of notes in an online class. It looks ridiculous. At the end of this class, notes shall be uploaded on your portal. You can also use my Telegram channel to go download these notes. You don't have to make notes. I will provide you these notes. You will find them in the app. Prama is saying regarding syllabus, Prama, go watch the orientation class from yesterday. Alright, I will tell them people to upload an orientation class on your portals too. Aishwarya is asking what is the difference between economic production and production. Aishwarya, the only difference is any economic activity is done for sale in the market. For example, I can be producing rice. I am a farmer, I produce rice. But if I produce rice only for my own consumption, only to feed my family, not to sell it in the market, then it is simply production. But if I am producing this rice to sell in the market too, then it will be called economic production. Aren't services being produced naturally out of human wants? Harshit, think of an example. There are many ecosystem services which are being produced naturally. Certainly there are. Monica is saying your Telegram channel name. Now, all of you people, you should attend orientation. But anyway, I think most of you may not have gotten any orientation. So, I will not hold you accountable for this. So, this is my Telegram channel. This is the name of the Telegram channel. There will be one with a logo, one without a logo. Go to the one with a logo of PW. This is where you will find your notes. Mona Lisa, this is where you are going to find your notes. All right. Manoj is saying, sir, production includes services also. Yes, Manoj, production includes both goods and services. What I am producing for you right now is a service. You go to a doctor to seek consultation for an ailment that has been troubling you. The doctor is producing a healthcare as a service for you. The cab ride that we took an example of is also production of a service. All right? Fair enough. Now, let us go back to the definition of another item, another important economic activity, which is called consumption. If you understand what production means, now let us move on to discussing what consumption means. Right? How do you define consumption? There are producers who produce goods and services. These goods and services carry what we call utility, which is also called use value, which is also called need satisfying potential of an item. Now, these goods and services carry utility for others. When these others buy these goods and services, they don't necessarily have to buy these goods and services. When these others realize the utility, the realization of the utility of goods and services, this is called consumption. For instance, you bought that very expensive diamond ring. You want to keep it safe. Safety is your need right now. Now you find a way to keep this diamond ring safe by using a locker. A locker is not naturally available. A locker would be made by a locksmith. You go to a locksmith and you ask of the locksmith if this person has something to sell you. The locksmith gives you the locker provided you give him something back. When you bring home this locker and you put your diamond ring inside it and you lock it up, you are doing what? You are realizing the utility of the good that you have just bought. The realization of utility of goods and services is how you define consumption. This is how you define consumption. That's it. It is about usage of goods and services. Absolutely correct, Vamsi. Agnes also. The use of these goods and services to satisfy your needs and wants, this is how you define consumption. Extracting the value of any goods and services, Harshit, absolutely correct. This is how you define consumption. Now, we'll go back to our definition, which is there are economic agents, consumers and producers. Government can be both a producer as well as a consumer. For example, government produces safety as a service. The exam that you're going to be writing, it's called Indian Administrative Services, Indian Police Services, Indian Foreign Services, Indian Revenue Services. You will be producing these services on behalf of the government. If you get to be an IAS, you will be producing administration as a service. If you get to be a part of the defense forces, you are producing safety and security as a service. So can government be a producer? Yes, government is a producer. Is government a consumer also? Certainly a government is a consumer. For example, think of the government producing healthcare as a service. The government has set up the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which is a hospital. Is everything that goes in AIIMS produced by the government? Do you think government produces the bricks which will be used to make that building? Do you think the government makes the cement that goes in that building? Do you think all the electric appliances which are going to be used in AIIMS are produced by the government? Do you think that the X-ray machine, the ultrasonography machine, the CT scanner, the MRI scanner, the stethoscope that the doctors will use, the stretchers that the doctors will use, do you think all of them are produced by the government? They are not produced by the government. The government has to buy them from the market. So what does the government do? Government is both a producer, government is also a consumer. In fact, for that matter, every producer is also a consumer. A consumer may or may not be a producer, but every producer is a consumer, including the government. The government produces things, the government also consumes things. So if I have to define economics in another way, I can also define economics as the study is the study of the important economic activities of production, consumption, and distribution. This is one more way of defining economics as a discipline. Economics is simply defined as the study of the activities of production, consumption, and distribution. Whatever is being produced also has to be distributed. So can we define economics in this manner also? There are multiple ways in which we can define economics. Economics is a study, it's an academic discipline. I hope we have done enough justice to understand what economics essentially means. Is this clear? Is this clear now? There are many ways of defining economics as a discipline. Definition number 1, economics is the study of scarcity. Very simply put, if you get a 10 marker, this is how you can define economics. If you get a slightly bigger question, where you have to explain a little bit more, you can say economics is the study of scarcity of resources and the ultimate objective is the optimal allocation of these scarce resources. One more way of defining economics would be that economics is a social science, it's not a natural science, it's a social science which concerns itself with the scarcity of resources and the choices that economic agents, producers, consumers and the government are forced to make because of this scarcity. And fourth definition of economics could very simply be, economics is the study, just a minute, economics is the study of important economic activities of production, consumption and distribution of resources. Cyan, cyan or cyan? I don't know, I think it's cyan. Why is there money scarcity in terms of economics? Cyan will reach there. Don't worry about that. Don't jump onto topics. When we study money, monetary policy and money supply, I will explain to you why is there scarcity of money. Why can't we have unlimited amounts of money? Too soon to discuss that. Too soon to discuss that. Right? So we have had at least 4 definitions of economics as an academic discipline. And what is the first and foremost objective of economics? The first and foremost objective of economics as an academic discipline is very simply the optimal allocation of scarce resources. This is the first objective of economics. The optimal allocation of resources which are scarce. Alright. Now, let us move on to first discuss, if this is economics, then how do you define economy? What is the meaning of the word economy? Because remember, your syllabus is not economics, your syllabus is Indian economy. Harsha, can you stop spamming? We will take it towards the end of the class also. I have seen your question. If I am not answering it, clearly there has to be a reason. Towards the end of the class, I'll tell you. Don't worry. Not in the middle of the class. This was the first request I made you all. Right? The first request that I made was, while I am on the board, try and not spam. Alright, what is economy now? Remember, your course is not economics. Your course is Indian economy. Now, what is economy? It's very simply defined as all the economic activities of production, distribution, and consumption when associated with a territory forms the economy of that territory. All the 3 important economic activities of production, distribution, and consumption associated with the territory or happening within a territory constitutes the economy of that territory. If that territory is a nation, then you are talking about national economy, which means all the production, all the distribution, and all the consumption of goods and services happening within Indian territory comprises Indian economy. If this territory is a state, for example, Rajasthan, for example, all the production, all the consumption, all the distribution of goods and services happening within the territory of Rajasthan will comprise Rajasthan's economy. Similarly, this territory can also be, you can say, a district. Within Rajasthan, there is a district called Jhunjhunu. All the production, all the consumption, all the distribution of resources happening within Jhunjhunu's district will comprise the economy of Jhunjhunu. It can be any territory. All the economic activities happening within a territory constitute the economy of that territory. And keep in mind that our syllabus is economy. But for us to understand economy and its issues, we will first have to understand some basics of economics, more specifically the basics of macroeconomics. Get this? This is how you very simply define economy. You have heard of terms like rural economy. You have heard of terms like urban economy. When we mention that India's rural economy is not doing great, what are we talking about? We are basically saying that production, consumption, and distribution happening in India's rural section is not great. Happening in India's villages is not great. Urban economy in India is showing a lot of promise, is showing a lot of growth. What does it mean? It means the production, consumption, and distribution of resources happening in urban India, that is very promising. That is showing a lot of potential. Economy is nothing. Economy is simply defined as all the economic activities of production, consumption and distribution associated with a specific territory. This territory does not necessarily have to be the nation. It could be the entire world. We can talk about world economy. We can talk about USA's economy. We can talk about India's economy, Pakistan's economy, Bangladesh's economy for that matter. We can talk about rural Indian economy, urban Indian economy. We can talk about economy of Delhi. We can talk about economy of Maharashtra. All of this is nothing. It is just these economic activities happening within a specific territory. Is this clear? Now, do you understand the basics? The basic meaning of economics? Economics is the discipline. Economy is that discipline playing out in reality. Understood? Economics and economy, what's the difference between the two? Agnes, this is the definition not of economics. Economics is the subject. Economy is the subject in motion. Economy is the reality. Clear? So, in terms of our objectives, what have we all achieved? In terms of our objectives, as of now, we have understood the meaning of economics, the meaning of economy, what is the objective of economics. Now, let us move to the types of economics. The types of economics. Broadly speaking, you will have two types of economic disciplines. Two types. There are many, but for our understanding, let us move to discuss something called macroeconomics and something called microeconomics. What is macro? What is micro? Okay. What is Adu, sir, one time the definition, I'm not able to understand writing. UPSC, which definition used? None of these definitions is incorrect. You can use whichever, depending upon what type of a question are you getting. If you're getting a 15 marker, although you will not get a question as basic as this, but if you're getting a bigger question, then go for a more comprehensive definition. If you're getting a 10 marker, then use a single line definition. That's it. The types of economics, macro and micro. Now, macroeconomics is also called the economics of aggregates, and microeconomics is called the economics of units or components. Now, understand this is a very common misconception about macro and micro. There is a very common misconception. What is the common misconception? How do you define macroeconomics? We say that the economics of the aggregate is macro, while the economics of units or components is micro. Now, what do we mean by this? It simply means that macroeconomics is that branch of economics which is concerned with the study of the economy as a whole. We just said that macro is the study of the economy as a whole. The entire economy taken together, the aggregate economy. Microeconomy is the study of the units or the components of the economy. Now, any economy is made up of multiple components. For example, when we were talking about production as an activity, think about production. We said production is a process which deals with the extraction of natural resources and the transformation of natural resources into goods and services which hold utility for others. On that basis, all the production can be divided into three sectors. There can be production happening in the primary sector of an economy. There can be production happening in the secondary sector of an economy, and there can be production happening in the tertiary sector of an economy. All the production that happens in an economy, all this important economic activities of production can be divided into three broad sectors: the primary sector, the secondary sector, as well as the tertiary sector. Now, what is primary sector? Primary sector is very simply put, it is that sector of the economy which deals in two things. It deals either in the extraction of natural resources or it deals in the production of raw materials. The primary sector of the economy is concerned with two things: either the extraction of natural resources, that means there are some resources which we don't produce but are produced naturally. We just have to go and extract those resources. What do we do to extract resources? We do a lot of mining to extract resources. Mining and mineral exploration. For example, gold. Human beings don't produce gold. Gold is a resource which is naturally available. Now, somebody has to go and extract gold. Iron, for that matter. Iron is produced naturally. Somebody has to go and extract iron ore, and from iron ore we will extract iron, and then we will use iron to make steel and other alloys. What do we do to extract natural resources? We mine natural resources out of the Mother Earth. Or it deals in the production of raw materials. Now, there is a huge confusion in people here as to what raw materials mean. Raw materials are nothing. Raw materials are materials which are available or which are produced in their unprocessed state. That is what a raw material is. Raw material simply means something which is unprocessed right now. For example, when you produce rice, rice comes with a lot of husk on it. For example, when you produce the grain, food grains like wheat, you don't eat wheat as is produced. You will harvest wheat and thereafter there will be a lot of processing of that wheat to convert that into wheat flour. So what is the primary sector? The primary sector is simply defined as that sector of an economy which is dealing in the extraction of natural resources or the production of raw materials. What goes in the primary sector of an economy? Mining and mineral exploration goes here, and the second thing that goes here is agriculture and allied sectors. This will include crop farming, this will include livestock, this will include fisheries, and this will include forestry and logging. All of these are raw materials. In agriculture and allied, like I said, this is going to include crops, animals, livestock, fisheries, and forestry and logging. Now these are all raw materials. These are materials in an unprocessed state. So primary sector of an economy either deals in the extraction of natural resources or production of raw materials. What does the secondary sector of an economy do? Secondary sector of an economy takes input from the primary sector and then transforms these inputs into finished goods. The secondary sector of the economy is concerned with what? This is the sector which is concerned with the transformation of raw materials or natural resources, both of which are products of the primary sector of the economy. They deal in the transformation of raw materials and natural resources into what is called finished goods. For example, extraction of iron ore will be a primary sector activity. But from iron ore, somebody is creating iron, somebody is creating steel. That will be a secondary sector economy because we are transforming our natural resources into finished items. From that iron, from that steel, people are making cars, people are making bikes, people are making pillars and whatnot. All of those are finished goods. Finished goods are those goods which have been transformed, processed, are in now ready to use format. This is what the secondary sector of the economy does. Takes input from the primary sector of the economy, converts this input into finished goods. Secondary sector, what goes in the secondary sector? Broadly speaking, three items go in the secondary sector. Manufacturing goes here. Utilities, which means essentially power and water. And the third thing is construction. Manufacturing, utilities would be about power and water. And this would be construction. Taking raw materials, taking natural resources, converting them into finished goods. This is the secondary sector of an economy. What is the tertiary sector of the economy? Tertiary sector is the sector which supports both the primary as well as the secondary sector. Tertiary sector deals in the production of services. Here, what is being produced? No goods are being produced in the tertiary sector. What is being produced? Services are being produced. For example, you will have to create a service, right, wherein some person has to take rice from the fields to the market. That is transportation and logistics as a service. The TV which was manufactured in the secondary sector has gone bad. Somebody will repair that TV for you. Repair and maintenance is a service. You are feeling ill. You will have to go to a hospital, and in the hospital, the doctor will use many components which were made in the secondary sector. For example, the doctor will use an X-ray machine on you. The doctor will use a stethoscope on you. These are all finished goods which were made by the secondary sector, and the doctor is going to diagnose what your ailment is. He is creating healthcare as a service for you. Banking, like Bhavani is saying, banking is a service. Banking and financial sector activities. Tourism is a service. Education is a service. Healthcare is a service. If you have educated population, if your workforce is very educated, that is going to further compound your productivity in the primary sector as well as the secondary sector. What would you want? Illiterate people in primary and the secondary sector, or would you want more educated, more skilled people in the primary and the secondary sector? I'm hoping that you would choose the latter. Without transportation, without logistics, without credit and finance, without educated workforce, without healthy workforce, the productivity of both of these sectors suffers. Administration, Agnes is saying, administration will go here. in the services sector. So what does the service sector do or the tertiary sector do? The tertiary sector aids and augments production of primary as well as the secondary sector output. This is what happens in any economy. All the production can be classified into three sectors: primary, secondary as well as tertiary sector. Now, can I say that the primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector are the three components of an economy? IT services, like Sachin is saying, absolutely correct. Can I say that primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector, all of these three are components or units that build an economy? Can I say this? Give me a yes or a no. Shivani is saying teaching. Yes, education is a service. Right? These are the three components of any economy. Any economy will have primary sector, secondary sector as well as the tertiary sector. When we are studying only the components of an economy and not the economy as a whole, then we are talking microeconomics. But when we are studying the entire economy, when we are studying the aggregate economy, that is what we are talking about macroeconomics. For example, a good macroeconomic indicator could be poverty. When I say poverty, Manoj is saying, sir, I have a doubt that in Indian primary sector is industrial sector since production in agriculture. Manoj, you can write your doubt in Hindi also, because I can't seem to understand what you're saying. All of you all who are comfortable writing a doubt in Hindi, I'm perfectly okay with understanding a doubt in Hindi too. If I say poverty, am I talking about a specific type of poverty? If I'm saying something like the BPL population in India, here I am talking about the entire Indian economy. Here I am talking about the entire economy. I am not specifying urban poverty or rural poverty. I am talking about Indian economy, and I am saying, let's say 25% of India remains below the poverty line. I am talking on a more macro level. If I am saying India's GDP will turn to 10 trillion in the next 10 years, is GDP a macroeconomic indicator or a microeconomic indicator? GDP simply means all the final goods and services produced by an economy. GDP will be about the entire economy. All the final goods and services produced in an economy will comprise its GDP. GDP is a macroeconomic indicator. When I say inflation, inflation is not the rise in prices of one or two items. Inflation is the rise in the price level, general price level of an economy. Inflation concerns the entire economy, so I am talking macroeconomics. If I am talking inequality, if I am saying 10% of India's richest people hold 80% of India's wealth, then I am talking macroeconomy. If I am talking in India, the unemployment rate is 8%. I am talking about the unemployment rate of the entire economy. So I am talking macroeconomics. However, if I say agricultural growth rate in India was 3%, am I talking macro or microeconomics? If I say that agriculture in India witnessed a growth of 3%, am I talking macro or am I talking micro? Sachin is saying literacy, although literacy rate is not an economic indicator, but sure. I knew that all of you will say macro. If I am saying agriculture or the growth rate of agriculture in India was a 3%, I am not talking macro, I am talking microeconomics. Why? Because agriculture is one component of the entire economy. I am not talking about the economy as a whole. I am talking about the components of my economy. Agriculture is one component of the primary sector of an economy, while the economy has three sectors taken together. I am only talking about one. The study of the components, the units of an economy is microeconomics. The study of the entire economy taken together is macroeconomics. This is what I wanted you to understand. Micro does not mean one good, one service. Micro means units of an economy or components of an economy. If you are talking about individual units and not the entire economy taken together, then you are talking about microeconomics. Look at each of these indicators, each of them. Did we say urban poverty, rural poverty? No, we said poverty in India. That means we are talking about the entire economy. When I say GDP, GDP is no, I'm not saying agricultural GDP is so and so. I'm only talking about GDP of the entire economy. When I'm talking about poverty in India, when I'm talking about inflation in India is at a 4%, then I'm talking about the entire economy. When I'm talking inequality in India, Gini coefficient of India, 0.15, something like that, I'm talking about the entire economy. So each time we study the economy as a whole in aggregate, all combined, we are going macroeconomics. And this is what is relevant for civil services, not this. This is very relevant. We will have to talk about many important macroeconomic indicators such as national income, money supply of an economy. We'll have to talk about budget for the entire economy, taxation. We'll have to talk about inequality, poverty, unemployment, so on and so forth. Do you get this? Very good, very good. Renosia saying some other examples of macro. Renosia, a very good hack for this is just open the book on macroeconomics. All the chapters mentioned there will be macroeconomics, right? Which will include national income, which is essentially GDP and national income, money supply, central banking. Then you have something like external sector for the entire economy, balance of payments. You will have something like budgeting, taxation, that's for the entire economy. That is all macro. We are talking about the entire economy taken together. Siddharth is saying, what about industrial sector taken as a whole? Siddharth, ask yourself, industrial sector is just one part of one sector of the three sectors of an economy. Harshit is saying consumption and production. If you are talking about all the consumption in India, macro. If you are talking about all the production in India, macro. But if you are talking about consumption of shoes in India, then they are talking about a specific item, micro. If you are talking about production of cars in India, then you are talking micro. It's very simple. When we are talking about some components of the economy, but not the entire economy, then micro. If you are talking about the all economy taken together, the economy of the aggregate, everything combined, then macro. Priya, we study Indian agriculture in Indian economy, not economics. Get this? These are the two things that you have to know. What is macroeconomics? What is microeconomics? For civil services preparation, what will be relevant? Macroeconomics will be very, very relevant. A lot of questions in prelims come from macroeconomics. In mains, you will not find any question from economics. You will find questions from the entire Indian economy. Macro, very relevant for your exam. micro not so much. Jesse is saying how to identify micro and macro inflation in the economy. Jesse, there is no such thing as micro inflation. Inflation is a macroeconomic indicator. Wait for the chapter. Get this? Alright, so types of economics. As of now, understand there is something called macroeconomics, something called microeconomics. And the last thing we have to talk about is economic systems. What do we mean by economic systems? We began our discussion by saying that what gave birth to economics as a discipline was the scarcity of resources, was the fact that our resources are scarce, they are very limited, while our needs, our wants, they are unlimited. Therefore, the first concern of economics as a discipline is how do we optimally allocate those resources? The question therefore will be, who will decide where will these resources go? That is a question which is solved through economic systems. What are economic systems all about? Economic systems are all about who has the decision-making power or the authority to decide resource allocation. If I have to explain this to you simply, which is if I ask you a question, how many cars should be produced in India in this year? If I ask you a very simple question, which is, what do you think how many cars should be produced in India? Who has the authority to decide how many cars should be produced in India, of which type? How many petrol cars, how many diesel cars, how many electric vehicles, right? How many SUVs, how many sedans, how many hatchbacks? Who will decide? That is what economic systems are concerned with. Economic systems are concerned with the decision making, with the authority that will determine where resources are going to go. Who has the decision making power? Who has this role? Now there are two extremes of economic systems. You have economies which you call capitalist economies, also called free market economies, also called laissez-faire economies. This is one polar extreme. The other polar extreme is socialist economies. These are two poles, different poles, and in the middle you will have something called mixed economies. In a capitalist economy or a free market economy, who decides how much things, or you can say how much cars should be produced, how many doors should be produced, how many television should be produced, or what kind of television should be produced, 70 inches, 65 inches, 80 inches, 45 inches. Who is deciding each of these? Who is deciding where resources are going to go? In capitalist economies, also called free market economies, also called laissez-faire economies, this decision is with no single person. There is no one person, there is no one authority which determines where resources are going to go. Then who decides this? In free market economies, prices decide where resources are going to go. Nobody else. In free market economies, it will be prices which will decide what items will be produced, how much will be produced, of what type will be produced. There will be no single person, there will be no single authority to tell where resources should be going. In socialist economies, the same decision with respect to allocation of resources is taken by command. This is called command and control economies. This decision is taken by the government. The government will get to decide how many items should be produced. For example, till 1991, India was a command and control economy. Pretty much everything with respect to production in India was very tightly regulated by the government itself. Who will decide what should be produced, of what type should be produced, how much should be produced, at what price should it be sold? Who will decide this? Authority will decide. There will be a single authority which will determine where resources have to go, and that authority would be the government. In a mixed economy, you will have attributes of the capitalist economy, you will have attributes of the socialist economies also. A mixed economy is a mix between these two things. It's a mix of free market and also government intervention. Keep in mind, I'm not going to go in detail today because next chapter is basically about this. Understand this. If somebody tells you or somebody asks you what economic systems mean, economic systems are basically decision-making systems. Economic systems essentially are the answer to the question, who will decide what should be produced, how much should be produced, of what quality should be produced. That is what economic system basically means. Who has the decision-making authority, who performs this role of telling how much of something should be produced or not, what should be produced. There are two polar extremes. You have a free market economy which detests government intervention, which mostly supports private enterprise. You have another polar extreme which is called the socialist economy, where the government tightly regulates and controls production. And then you have a mix of these two, which is called a mixed economy, and India is a mixed economy. It has some attributes, some elements of a capitalistic economy, of a free market economy, and of course, it has also some elements, some attributes of the government intervention. This is what economic systems are all about. We don't have a lot of time to explain each of these. In fact, each of these we will discuss in detail in subsequent chapters. In fact, tomorrow itself, we will understand how is it that prices determine allocation of resources and who decides prices. Prices will be decided in the market through an interaction between what is called demand and supply. This is our chapter for tomorrow. We will understand demand, we will understand supply, we will have to understand markets, market competition and market equilibrium. And that is how we will understand how is it that prices determine what should be made, how much should be made, and of what quality should it be made. That is our subsequent lectures. Tomorrow will be about demand and supply. Tomorrow will be about markets. Get this? Today was simply an introductory section, which was about what economics means, what is it concerned with, what economy means, what is the primary concern of economics as an academic discipline, what are the various types of economics, what do we mean by economic systems. Tomorrow we will go deeper into this and we will try and understand how is it that prices determine allocation of resources. It's going to take us a minimum of 2 more classes. We will have to first understand demand, then we will have to understand supply, then we will have to understand an interaction between demand and supply which happens in the market. Once we are done with that, thereafter we will understand how is it that prices determine where resources are going to go. Now, many of you had asked about notes. I am going to get these notes uploaded. Wait for 3 lectures. The first, I think the first 3 lectures, the notes should be uploaded together after 3 classes. Once we do markets, I will upload the notes for this in the 3rd lecture itself. Get this? How many bits come from prelims, resources, strategy? Sheikh, I had taken a 2.5 hour lecture yesterday about orientation. Kindly tell me your batch, like which batch are you from? Pinnacle 7, if not 7.0, which batch are you from? I will have that orientation class uploaded. Class timing same rahegi? No, class timing will not be the same. Only today was 6 to 8. Normally it will be 4:30 to 6:30. We need to make notes, sir, or not? Hitler, पहली बात तो Hitler क्यों ना? If this is your real name, I mean kudos. But do we need to make notes? I mean, if you can, how does it happen in your college or in your school? Right? I will give you notes. If you want to make notes on your own, you are free to do that. But I will give you printed notes. Don't worry about that. Alright, so I will request the management to upload the orientation class. Please check whether you have it uploaded already or not. I will request them to upload it across all of these 5, 6 and 7. Okay, cool. I will do that. Alright. Tomorrow we will start with markets. We will have to understand demand first, supply then, and after this we will understand what market essentially means. ठीक है. I will get this uploaded. Don't worry about this. I will request the management. उनको बोल दूंगा कि you should have it uploaded in your portals. I will get them uploaded. Don't worry. Abhishek, in that orientation class, I have discussed everything. It's a lot. It's a long session, so you don't have to worry about this. Live notes नहीं बना सकते. विवेक, तुम्हारी मर्जी बनाने बना लो यार. If you want to make it, जब आप कॉलेज में जाते हो, यूनिवर्सिटी में जाते हो, तो I am very sure the teacher, the professor does not give you any dictation, right? How do you do it there? If you want to, you can make your notes live also. I will give you detailed notes too. Abhishek, after the orientation class is uploaded to your portal, you will have, I have discussed this at length. Don't worry about this. All right. All of you are talking about books and resources. Wait for the orientation class to be uploaded to your portals. We have discussed this at quite a length, so you don't have to worry. Typically, the resources would be, let me just tell you resources, class notes. You will have NCERT macro class 12th. It's called introductory macroeconomics. This is only for class 12th, introductory macroeconomics. Third, you will have to pick up on current affairs. Fourth, you will have to pick up on the economic survey in the year you're going to be writing your exam. Fifth, the budget. Current affairs, economic survey and the budget are really, really important. You cannot do without them. सर आप हैंड राइटिंग थोड़ा अच्छे से लिखिए, बहुत वर्ड समझ नहीं पाते हैं. आदू, जब मैं लिखता हूं मैं बोल भी देता हूं, तो अगर आप सुन भी सकते हो तो आप सुन के लिख लीजिएगा, घबराइए मत. Shiva, you are saying, can we make today's class notes? Why would I stop you from making notes? Why are you asking my permission to make notes, guys? If a person is making good, another person is providing services with that good, what should we call? It is still production. Will you take up PYQs in class? Absolutely, I will. What about current affairs class? Rama, I don't know about current affairs class. I take Indian economy. PYQs we will discuss class में only. Don't worry. Right? हम क्लास में डिस्कस करेंगे. Right? Also PYQs की discussion has already been uploaded on YouTube. Right? So in our channel PW OnlyIAS English you will find it. I am pretty sure in other PW OnlyIAS channels also you will find it. So there's no need to worry about this. Harsha, you're saying I am confused with the edition of the which book are you talking about? अरे ये तो बता दीजिए किस बुक की बात कर रहे हैं आप? Prama, in current affairs classes, do they not take economy? No. In current affairs classes, do they not take economy is what I'm asking. I'm sure they would take economy. How do you do current affairs without economy? Sir, in resources, prelims PIQs are in Hindi. Please upload in English language. They have not been uploaded in English language? Okay. Please active recall. What does that mean? Huh? Guys, there are three books which are normally referred to by aspirants. One is Vivek Singh Sir's book. The other one is a book written by I think Nitin Singhania. The third book is a book written by Mr. Ramesh Singh. I think there are three. Across each of these books, I discussed this yesterday also. I've heard a lot of good things about Vivek Singh Sir's book. So, but I've not read any of them. So, if you have to, you ideally should pick any one of these. I would recommend you to pick the most popular one, which should most likely be Vivek Singh Sir's book. Right? You go to a bookstore, you ask for these three books, Vivek Singh Sir's book, Nitin Singhania's book, or even Ramesh Singh's book. Pick the same chapter across three. Try and read a few lines, whichever suits your fancy, pick one. You don't have to go all of them. अरे भवानी, active recall क्या होता है मेरे भाई? What do we mean by active recall? Sir, please active recall. What is this? PW provided us some books. Will it not be enough? Abhishek, I am telling you, yesterday also in the class I said, if you do class notes, if you read macroeconomics NCRT, and if you are following current affairs regularly, there will be barely any time for you to do any other resource, and this is more than sufficient. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up today. I will have the orientation class uploaded to each of your portals. Please have a look there. Right, please go look it up. Right, I think that is going to help you. Most of your questions are basically centered around those. How many months of current affairs should we read for this year's exam? Subhani, typically the golden rule is 15 months minimum from the date of your prelims, right? 15 months before. So if you are going to write it in May of this year, that means May 2026. So May 2025 would be 12 months. You can begin from February, right? Typically from the January of the previous year. That should be good enough. 15 to 16 months. Faruqi sir is trying to say summary of class equals active recall. कुछ भी words है. Summary class, active recall, Pomodoro. चुपचाप basic studies करो. Alright guys. Okay, before every lecture, I will of course summarize the previous lecture. आज ही पढ़ के आज ही क्या summary दे दूंगा आपको. गजब हाल है तुम लोगों के. Right? Every class, in the first few minutes, we will discuss what has happened in the last class. If I have taught you today, why would I make you revise today only? Alright, chalo, we are done with this. Have a good day guys. Bye-bye.